Before we start, I would like to say one thing very important. If you are new here and you don't know what this channel is about, this is where you learn English by listening to stories about amazing people. So, if you want to improve your listening skills and enjoy entertaining stories about history's most fascinating people, subscribe right now. Also, please leave us a comment. We love reading your comments and responding to them. Now, let's get started. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to the channel. Today, we will talk about a very famous painter, an iconic Mexican artist who had a big influence on 20th century art. Her name was Frida Kahlo, and she is also known as Frida Kahlo de Rivera. She was born in 1907 in Coyoacán, Mexico City. Frida's work was strongly influenced by her personal experiences, and she is best known for her self-portraits. This is an interesting story, and I hope you enjoy it. But before I begin, I would like to ask you to support me by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. When she was just 6 years old, she contracted polio and spent almost a year in bed recovering from the disease. A few years later, when she was 18, she was involved in a terrible bus accident that left her with a fractured pelvis, a broken collarbone, a broken foot, and an eye injury. During her long recovery, she painted many pictures of flowers and landscapes around her home. At that time, she began exploring her interest in art and discovered her talent for painting. In 1925, she met the famous Mexican painter Diego Rivera. He was 9 years older than her. They married in 1929, and together they traveled to New York. In the United States, she was exposed to a completely different culture. And this trip was very important because she found inspiration for some of her most famous paintings. For example, she visited the Museum of Modern Art and the Art Institute of Chicago, where she saw works by European modern masters such as Picasso, Matisse, and other artists. Back in Mexico, she painted a self-portrait inspired by those artists. She called it The Two Fridas. It is probably her best-known work today. After living in New York for 4 years, she returned to Mexico City with her husband and continued her artistic career there. Then, in 1938, she had a solo exhibition at the Julian Levy Gallery in New York. She received positive reviews from critics, but unfortunately, she became seriously ill and was unable to travel to New York for the opening of the exhibition. She did not have a passport, so instead, her husband went in her place, and he told the critics that she was too busy painting to attend the show. However, the gallery owner lied and said that Frida was sick and couldn't come. So, in reality, her husband's excuse became a good story for the critics. They used it to write about her mysterious personality and lifestyle. That's why many of her early American reviews emphasize her exoticism. That's a word that means something or someone coming from far away, like the East or Mexico in this case. However, later, she was able to travel to France and Spain to meet many influential artists. During the war, she could not bear the distance from her husband, who was in Mexico City, and she moved there. Her health deteriorated rapidly. She suffered from many physical problems caused by her previous accident and from depression after her first abortion. She had several abortions during her childless marriage. She experienced pain throughout her life. Some of her paintings from this period show how she dealt with that pain. For example, in the broken column, she used the column to represent her spine, and she compared her body to an object that can break. After her divorce from Diego Rivera in 1940, she continued to paint. She focused more on her style and less on political themes. In 1953, she had another serious health complication. She suffered from gangrenous, and she had to have part of her right foot amputated. Her doctors advised her to stop painting since she had to stay in bed for a long time, but she didn't listen to them. She continued to paint, and this experience inspired her to create one of her most famous self-portraits, the broken column. In 1955, she had a hip operation. She never fully recovered, and her condition worsened over the following years. Frida Kahlo died in 1954 at the age of 47. One of her last paintings was a self-portrait called The Years of My Life. It was a symbolic representation of her entire life. There is a lot to discover in this painting, and you can see many of the recurring symbols in her work, such as the thorn necklace, which represents suffering, and the monkey, which symbolizes sexuality. So what exactly was Frida's style? She often used a style called Mexicanidad. It literally means Mexicanness. This style is a combination of pre-Hispanic iconography and colonial religious imagery. She also drew on various sources of inspiration. She combined elements from reality with symbolism, and she used bright colors in her paintings. Now let's go back to the beginning of her story and talk about her family and childhood. She was born in 1907 in Mexico City. Her parents were Guillermo Kahlo and Matilda Calderon. Her father was a German immigrant and a successful photographer. Her mother was a member of the indigenous Nahu people. Frida was named after her grandmother, Magdalena Carmen Frida Kahlo. As I mentioned earlier, when she was 6 years old, she contracted polio and spent almost a year in bed recovering from the disease. After she recovered, she was sent to a boarding school in the hope that she would become more sociable. Unfortunately, her classmates made fun of her because of her limp. She hated school and felt isolated there. She dreamed of becoming a nun, but she soon realized that she was more interested in boys than in God. When she turned 15, she began having a romantic relationship with a boy who lived next door. He was 12 years older than her. It was her first boyfriend, and they had a passionate romance. But the boy broke up with her when she had an abortion. In 1922, she attended the National Preparatory School, which was a prestigious institution for boys. She was the only girl in her class, and once again she felt isolated. Frida struggled to fit in, but she was a bright student. She excelled in math, philosophy, and poetry. However, when she was 18, she was involved in a terrible traffic accident that left her with a fractured pelvis, a broken collarbone, a broken foot, and an eye injury. The accident happened when she boarded a streetcar in Mexico City with a friend. She always sat in the same place, but that day she chose to sit somewhere else, and it was a fateful decision. As the trolley car approached the corner of two streets, it collided with another vehicle. Frida was thrown through the windshield and landed on the sidewalk. The impact broke her pelvis and injured her right foot and left shoulder. She also suffered a severe concussion. The pole from the trolley car went through the windshield and entered her eye socket, leaving her permanently blinded in her right eye. As I already told you, during her long recovery, she painted many pictures of flowers and landscapes around her home. A few months later, she met the famous Mexican painter Diego Rivera, and they fell in love. They married in 1929 and traveled to New York, where they lived for 4 years. She loved New York and spent a lot of time visiting museums and art galleries. During their time in New York, they befriended many artists and intellectuals, including André Breton, who was the leader of the Surrealist movement. He invited her to join the group, but she declined the invitation. In fact, she rejected Surrealism entirely. She did not want to be associated with any particular movement. In her own words, she was a painter, not a surrealist, nor a cubist, nor anything else. She wanted to be free to express herself without being labeled or categorized. She said, "I never painted dreams. I paint my own reality." While living in New York, she visited the Museum of Modern Art and the Art Institute of Chicago. There, she saw works by European modern masters like Picasso and Matisse, and she was deeply impressed by them. Back in Mexico, she painted a self-portrait inspired by those artists. She called it The Two Fridas. It is probably her best-known work today. Then, in 1938, she had a solo exhibition at the Julian Levy Gallery in New York. Unfortunately, she could not attend the opening because she was seriously ill. She did not have a passport. So her husband went in her place and told the critics that she was too busy painting to come to the show. However, the gallery owner lied and said that Frida was sick and couldn't come. So, instead, her husband's excuse became a good story for the critics. They used it to write about her mysterious personality and lifestyle. That's why many of her early American reviews emphasize her exoticism. But Frida was not comfortable being treated like a celebrity. She preferred to stay in the background and let her work speak for her. Nevertheless, she continued to receive invitations to exhibitions and art events, and she began to enjoy the benefits of being a successful artist. She was able to buy a house for her parents, and she was invited to important social gatherings where she met many influential people. Then, in 1939, she was invited to participate in an exhibition in Paris, France. She was very happy about the invitation, but she could not accept it because she did not have a passport. She wanted to go to Europe and learn about art there, but she was unable to do so. Instead, she wrote letters to some of her friends in Europe, asking them to send her art magazines so she could keep up with current trends. She also asked them to bring her back some paint and brushes from Europe, because she believed that they were better quality than what she could find in Mexico. In 1940, she divorced Diego and married a muralist named Jose Garcia. She became pregnant with her first child, but she miscarried shortly after. She had several abortions during her childless marriage, and she experienced pain throughout her life. She dealt with that pain in various ways. But one of the things that helped her was art. She created some of her most famous paintings during this period, such as Henry Ford Hospital, The Broken Column, and The Wounded Deer. Henry Ford Hospital shows Frida lying on a hospital bed. She looks sad and lonely. The image reflects her feelings of isolation and despair. In the painting, there are two Fridas. The one on the bed is the real Frida. The one looking down at her is her idealized self. These two Fridas represent the duality of her personality. On the one hand, she was a strong and independent woman who did not need anyone's help. On the other hand, she was a vulnerable and fragile creature who needed love and care. The Broken Column is one of her most famous works. In this painting, Frida uses a column to represent her spine. She compares her body to an object that can break and bleed. The title of the painting also refers to the column. It suggests that Frida's body is not just a physical object, but also a structure that supports her identity and sense of self. The bleeding column implies that Frida's identity is fragile and vulnerable. It can be broken by external forces, such as society's expectations or her own personal struggles. The Wounded Deer is another one of her famous works. It depicts a deer with a red arrow through its heart. The deer represents Frida, and the arrow represents the pain that she has endured throughout her life. The blood that comes out of the wound symbolizes the anguish and suffering that she has experienced. However, the deer is still alive. It is breathing and moving. This suggests that Frida has survived all the pain she has endured. She has not been defeated by it. The last painting I want to mention is The Years of My Life. It is a symbolic representation of her entire life. She uses a clock to represent the passage of time. The clock has two faces, one showing the time of her birth and the other showing the time of her death. Between the two faces, there is a series of images that illustrate the major events in her life. There is a monkey holding a flower, which symbolizes her sexuality. There is a thorn necklace, which symbolizes her suffering. There is a butterfly, which symbolizes death and rebirth. And there is a heart, which symbolizes love and passion. Now, let's talk about her personal life and how it influenced her work. As I mentioned earlier, she had a difficult childhood. She was bullied at school, and she had a traumatic experience in a bus accident. She also had a lot of pain in her adult life. She had several abortions, and she suffered from various illnesses. All of these experiences shaped her personality and influenced her work. She was a very emotional person, and she expressed her emotions through her art. Her paintings are full of symbolism and iconography that reflect her inner world. She was a strong and independent woman who did not need anyone's help. She was a vulnerable and fragile creature who needed love and care. She was a proud Mexican who celebrated her heritage and culture. She was a talented artist who experimented with different styles and techniques. She was a complex individual who could not be easily categorized or labeled. Frida Kahlo was an iconic artist whose work continues to inspire people around the world. Her unique style and powerful imagery have made her one of the most recognizable artists of the 20th century. Her story is a reminder that even in the darkest of times, we can find beauty and meaning in our lives through art and self-expression. In recent years, there has been a surge of interest in Frida Kahlo's work and legacy. She has become a pop culture sensation with her image appearing on everything from t-shirts to coffee mugs. Some people have criticized this commercialization of her image, but others see it as a sign of her enduring popularity and influence. In 2021, Google celebrated her 114th birthday with a special edition of its logo. The logo features Kahlo standing in front of one of her paintings, The Two Fridas. The painting was chosen to represent Kahlo's dual identity, both Mexican and German. One of the most fascinating aspects of Kahlo's legacy is the way she has captured the imagination of people around the world. Her bold and colorful style, as well as her personal story, have made her a symbol of strength, resilience, and individuality. There have been several documentaries and films made about Frida Kahlo's life. One of the most recent is a 2021 film simply titled Frida, which stars Yalitza Aparicio in the lead role. The film explores the artist's childhood, her relationship with Diego Rivera, and the events that shaped her life and work. If you want to learn more about Frida Kahlo, I encourage you to check out some of the resources I have linked in the description below. There are many books, articles, and websites that can provide you with more information about her life and work. Thank you for watching this video about the amazing life of Frida Kahlo. If you enjoyed the video, please leave us a like and subscribe to the channel.